Drola penche sange juba shu sange chodan cheonji ma janchum paju dagni kepsu chi dagji chonyen yinam sonyan yi Drola penche sange juba shu
Namo Laike Namzan Jenke Jumbadanami again. Rogunji Jana Jizamba, Tanjeke do Daguchunen to that Tomatilla. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you. Any that Kazangi Santinema Shere. The Dambudilla. 지단이 상주지 신 rinpoche 의 하장기 자침부 나란초 지단기 미주마지 지단기 미지 용한테 전에 시버이나야 생기 나로라 시디당 다나 생기지 삼바 회뢰지당 삼바 상부지당 다나 생기지 자침부 통토에 된대기 낭주기 싫어 유버이나 지 가발을 때버이나 탄제지 니도 샤디에 손지 탄제베 주수 샤디에 손지 베 탄제 이동원다 야부통데 된대지 용되기도
And so Rinpoche says what we'll do is take up where we left off yesterday evening. And first of all, when we're thinking about this incredible mind of bodhicitta, the mind, this precious mind of enlightenment, then perhaps first of all, putting this into context, perhaps if we think first of all in terms of how in the sort of realm of ordinary people, and talking about the sort of positive minds, particularly in relation to ordinary people. So in the sort of ordinary world, we sort of evaluate or count minds which are, mind of peace and happiness, positive states of mind, people intelligent or wide, sort of open-minded, spacious and kind of open-minded way of thinking. For those who sort of think about these things and are wise and think about these things, then these are seen as attractive. These are seen as beneficial, attractive, or positive states of mind, just on the ordinary level.
낭시 당제 가발을 때워 있나야 지 참아 지 잘하셔야 손지 오 니양지 두자면 니양 두자면 세 참아로 지 생을 마봐야지 통세 참아로 배 두자라고 지도 된대지 지를 낭대지 용원되기도 수수기 심버든의 차용지.
And on the opposite side, if we have the minds which are, mind filled with kind of overthinking and full of different thoughts and concepts, particularly very negative states of mind, such as anger and cultivating bad thoughts. If we look anywhere, everywhere we look, they're always these kind of states of mind are just generally considered to be negative, to be unconstructive states of mind. And so whenever these sort of states of mind are presented to people, we think of them in that way as being negative.
대원되어봐도 동해면 되어봐 상류 나라 강에 유봐 다나 신기 류라야 강에 유대봐 수수도 내다 집어지장 임버지 근데지 통토바이나 수수를 되어 고교를 미신다를 고교해버지 수수의 디제 주야기 토당 요래 디데 지버지냐 미신다라 디제 주야기 토당 차상 요바 지버인 버지 드레지 통소나 드레기 상lu 요바이나 디 상루 디기 다 지조 나로기 내당당 수수단 민다의 상수에 가르레고 있는 참마지 가서 그래 다디도 용그레 디 용그레스의 참마지 원인 제토야지 원인스라고 그러베 참마 제토야지 생기 나로라 디 생나로라 forgives 그래 forgiveness
forgiveness.
생나 제토야지 다디 많이 버지 수수기 되어 주고 요래 수수를 디제 줘야기 토당 요버지 무슨 지고래 디베 가서 그래 슈치다도 마소나 수수기 되어 줘야기 상무디베 슈치무시부지 시부지베 세 동부지 지동치무시부지 디지부 상놓고 미신다디 하나 디제 두고 그매서지 미신다기 디제 당 디제 줘야기 토당 가르 요버디라 남의 쇼치시네 미신다기 디제 당 미신다기 토당了남面的字面的当于托呢叔叔的地界主要用的多但地用的你他了从主的但的那边用着恰用过了先生地用的讲了俺让叔叔的上路的也不几怕什么家亲部我有那就长么通途呀他那些个去偏偏上吧上部的结尾呢让了开上第7个月吧记住了第偏7个月吧근데지 통제진에 삼보상보당 다나 신기 싫어 낭주기 싫어디 공내 공부도 땅도가 있나 가와 때가 있나야 가서 그렇지 니도 샤대야 주스 샤대야 사마도 대대 파쇼 야부 추쇼야 파기의 지부도 추기의 지부도 쓰진 근데지 구양부지 샤용도
And so, within that context, if we look at, we start to sort of look at our own way of thinking, and is it a bit low? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, thank you. So then sort of taking that larger context and then looking at our own way of thinking. And we can, if we cultivate these positive states of mind, minds which are have a sort of wisdom to them that are beneficial, wishing to be of benefit and of concern, and then also another important factor is when encountering others, it's important that within our minds we have that sense that all the others of also a sense of equality or meeting people as ourselves, so that we feel that they are the same in wishing to avoid suffering. They are the same in wishing to have happiness, and this is true both on the physical level of our sort of bodies, but also on the mental level. So mental happiness, physical happiness, they wish to have, and they don't wish to have a mental and physical suffering. And so we should also have this, also the positive states of mind are the ones which are considered where we see them as in the same state, so that we feel they need it as much as we need it. Those things, they have the right to achieve happiness and remove their suffering in the same way that we have the right to remove our suffering and have happiness. So if we think like that, then this is something very positive in terms of the society, and sort of having that, and it's something which can easily be sort of that frame of mind, those positive states of mind which are beneficial, backed up with wisdom, and which see everyone as the same, as sort of something which is easy for the society to have forbearance of. But if we, on the opposite side, if we have a sort of much too strong a sense of the fact that I have the right to achieve happiness and remove my suffering, I need to have happiness and remove my suffering. But if that sort of gets, if that sense of self need gets too strong, and we get too locked on to that kind of way of thinking, then what tends to happen is that we start to ignore or forget the needs of others. So we start to almost ignore the fact, or we can't sort of bring it to our mind. It passes us by that other people have the rights and needs for those things also. We tend to ignore them. But this is to get into that kind of state is to fall into an extreme, a mistaken extreme, and this this way of so we need to, this is a mistaken way of thinking, and we need to be able to sort of widen that sphere so that we see everyone as equal in these ways, and so it's of our own advantage to and also of benefit to others to cultivate these kind of positive minds, which are open-minded, uh, are connected with discriminating wisdom, and which we sort of spread out in all directions. So this is looking at our own mind and seeing how the positive aspects that need to be cultivated.
다 디인디강라 상제 중딘 대지 라오자 나솔라 송야 개침부지디 가르송 거시나 나란수 수술라 강연 체야의 동해 유행기 주조 양면은 나란수를 뉴버쟁이기 자우조디 슐로로 요 말이스 수수 생각 요레스 저
Yeah.
수술로 동해 조증이 강연 조체기 주디 수수 생각로 유베 아니 디레스다 emotions la negative
Mama.
emotion
Negative emotion, right.
너무 루티 수체디
Yeah.
미시벨로 어디 수체디스 다 디인디강라 다니 다기 다인스 수수기 다오 모먼트 수수레스
Yeah.
수수를 디제 용하기 주조디한 실로로 요 말이스 디제 용하기 주조디 수수 생각로 요레스 어디 숨고도 다디 간제제 상당고디 계제디 띵서로
So then the Buddha it gives us some advice in relation to these things, where he says that when we think about all of our own suffering and problems, that the primary sort of factor in that is not from the outside. When we think of and also when we think of the happiness and joy and happiness in our lives, the primary factor which is involved with that is not from the outside. When we think of enemies, sort of confront, when we think of what are the problems and sufferings that come from enemies that confront us, the Buddha advises us that the principal enemy is not outside. The principal enemy for our suffering and our problems is within our own minds, which is the negative emotions and the kind of ignorant states of lack of knowledge and ignorant states of mind. And so the Buddha advises us that our own enemy is actually within ourselves, and it is our own mind, and that is on the basis of our own mind also that all of our joy and happiness comes about.
수수기 다우조디 수수레 수수기 gwenda 적 수수라니라 가서 핀버두킨 조디 슐로의 요 말에 신의 여자의 개요 말에 수수라니 조차디 요레시 계속해야지 된다 조디 가르스 거스나 다 계신 알아수 가서 그래 동행 뒤기메고 있느리다 양은 대원 뒤기요 있나 조디 수수라니 지 시제 연된다 다나신기 지 수부 최된다 다나신기 상루지 가서 그래 상루기 루이도 쓰고 그래 루도 니도 진부다 상루 자진부다 디수제디야 야제 동지 디수제딘도 스 가수 쇼치리 당도이나 디츠지 라니긴 되베 디제디 용교어다 제자 라니기 동엔 되기메워도 대원 되기메워이나 동에 시야다 대어 줘야디 수수치고다 조 대어 줘당당 동에 시야기 탈랑디다 수수기 gen라기 잘라 중해요 gen라기만 드시자요 레디 대어 줘야다 동에 시야기 탈랑 된산에 디 Deo Druya the Dunga Sea Lega Mumati Susu Chego, Susu
mm,
Chego,
mm,
Susu de Yuan Yomar. Says that the Indi Susugi Katsuchi Dunga Sea the Deo Druya Katsuchi to Inare, Shie Yuan Katsu Jang to Inare, Katsuchi action ro,
mm,
Katsuchi to Inare,
mm,
Dizang Rema to Katsuchi to Ina, Di Suji Pinto Yor,
mm,
Katsu Jiao Zong to Ina, Di
mm,
Pinto Yor, Di Mando emotion.
mhm,
상류 나로라 콘주사 나제지 차도사 뇌차지 디 가양 핑도 말다
mm,
싱 나로라 마지번 잠을 제대해줘
mm,
디디 핀바 지장요 말다 뇌범
mm.
바시마도 핀도 지장해 버려 가르기 핑그리스나 다 제고 내가 제고다 가르 가수 제투가 있는 어 디장래다 제투바 디 딜러다 제고요래 신다 가요 말했어 어디 순 거다
And so, so when we talk in this way of how the actual, the real enemy is inside of us, it's inside our own minds. It's our own. The real enemy is can be our own minds, but also, on the converse side, our minds can also be our own protector and refuge, and the thing which is able to provide us with welfare and benefit. So, if we have this context where we wish to have happiness and we wish to remove all of our suffering, to not have to suffer, then in terms of however much we're able to work on our minds, to develop wisdom and knowledge, also to work, to improve our health, to improve our mental strength and courage, to become more open-minded. As much as we're able to develop, expand, and increase these things, then that's where the happiness will come from, by working, implementing these things, and our happiness, the wished for happiness, will arise, and the suffering that we don't want to have will slowly decrease. So, of course, in some sense, other people can teach us about the paths and methods that are used in order, because when we talk about wishing to achieve happiness and we're wishing to avoid suffering, of course, we also have to understand what the paths and methods are towards that. And we can, of course, rely on an external teacher to be able to explain to us what those paths and methods for. But after receiving that information, the actual work has to be done by ourselves. And so as I said, through developing developing our knowledge and wisdom, courage and open-mindedness, and all of those qualities. And as much as we are able to work on developing those kind of positive qualities, that much we will get benefit in our search for happiness. And if this process is entangled up with the negative emotions, and we fall prey to anger, competitiveness, jealousy, pride, there's absolutely no benefit to these at all, and only the only result will be harm and suffering.
现在电影这讲了，俺说上类难路了，什么马基不差的，当去切古年纪，开始我的生难路了就对吧？修进不来的当大那些个控制修进不塞，地主这里看样，地长的拼图看没个，但我那个拼图有不地地的，但上路当起，你说写了别的当起，开始切古都，开始。채도 푸니가 가리 핀도 치원도 디 시르지 리버타지시네 아니 무스 라니 토라 게지시네 자옹스 장버이나 로 무스 세나라 공자 상리야 당 디네 라닝기 토네 도 자옹스 장년 침버이나 다디 용문의 핀도 용고요래 다디마도 이모션 초지부기 지구도 니구도 상버 장지 간요 요마로
So then it's extremely important that we remember that it's easy, but we should remember that if it's easy to get stuck where we just um, feeling unhappy, we feel this sort of we all of the we sort of feel like, oh, that I don't know what to do, should do this or do that, but not actually doing anything. But we get upset about things with strong desire and anger, but we don't actually do anything about it at all. Then there's really absolutely no benefit in that kind of condition. However, if we try to use sort of discriminating wisdom and also looking into what can be done and on a temporary level and on a more long-term basis, checking with discriminating wisdom, and then having checked and decided upon that, then actually directly putting those things into practice. So we begin to actually cultivate practices to help this situation, such as meditation and the other engaged practices, then that really is something that has a real benefit. But it's useless to just sit there not actually doing anything with us, having sort of strong feelings and emotions, but then not taking any practical steps to do anything about it. That's really of no benefit at all.
但俺说商律囊络了，几点多，就当山东那些的哈来位，也真清不嘞，俺让出。苏苏让你的，俺几乎有上不的，俺了刚年度上什么几嘛几的的，什么几不用嘛用当，省了，就地不用嘛用当，省了几地不有上不几不有上不草的用嘛用的，上了东当困难了来对不起，做的上了东当让了土对不起，差过，就先开始了就俺别下乡的，别算群众下位呢，别呢，是当结尾呢没长嘛路，我了搞不要了。别下了搞不要，我穷不赢呢，哦，别也不都是，我穷呢，生了搞不累了的。但因那样，即我越看起当，他那些我了店内，刚眼贴看去没去越赢的，但我了店内，健康那路了，过来，可说是彻底看，他那些我了店内，那么并且给暴露了，牛这全部恰得看，但这个没去了，恰算不赢呢，没地了搞的我穷不赢呢。他炸过去哦，他的名额了，我这个马用马都，他牛这用来的事情，我穷了那样，个就看是，但我是你的，卡说的，的人们都是，他也不记人们都是老过的，看的，但我是的，但牛这速度，刚刚速度上顶这个了，我就这个来为那三南路了，我这个的高了一个嘛了，干那了一个嘛，我穷不赢了他。我这个用的可能没几个，我这个用的可能大家俺了牛着手个用的事情的，还要查些弄浪些，什么马几不差个多，地人多，是吧？就山南路了，我了对方没被割了，我连说呢，几乎错呀当，也不穷松上山了高来的用我们多，但我了对方也被割了的，但俺了我孤独上面看多的了，我去穷松呢，他的叔叔跟对方的穷松上。搞了上按西你干那的那个多，几乎有超的那图多。现在加拿大穷起去，我不的穷起去呢，几乎穷嘛种谁的加拿大一图呢，切不住我们多，就是上路南路了，地人对吧有没了，啥那个多，对吧有没个了，我不的对吧有没我不的穷呢，记不起，对吧没没个了，我不的穷不赢呢，卡着穷不赢那样没搞些，是吧？这些人都别人俺说没开不起不起，就当老兄经验，老兄了搞不有个没经呢，没开不起的图书呢别搞个了的，他的开不起的图书我给些这谷歌西部穷说，他的别眼睛，他说了谷歌西部经验天呢，我图不上去干那西部穷过了，当然没看些，没开不的了没搞有不起是吧？开不图也了搞不没不起，库朗也开不，库朗也搞了银上，比现在开不的是这里，但是。图也对外面定义起图书呢，它的加码身上该也怕些马几不用的多，现在生个南路了，对外有面了啥那个多，我不的中年几不用嘛用谁的，我不的了对外有面，但对外有面的了啥来的讲了，但上届中年的第四个人对外了怕， 춘진 치워이나
Mm.
되바 세디 수수기 생각나 요로
Yeah.
디 수수 춘진 치도 그래
Ah.
슈르기 오부 디수 제딩 가서 춘진 치도 말 가서 라발로 요 말해
Ah.
뭐 요마요 세다 시기 춘진 디제 제디 라 말아 세디 자자 자담 수수 라발로 요 말해 디 시기 오부 인상 슈르기 진을 뛰버래
Mm.
녀를 뒤집어 손나
Law. Lasso. So again, taking a look at our way of thinking, it's quite. I mean, it is quite sort of astounding and amazing the sort of the amount the ways that we think, and if we have this sort of feeling of wishing to have having a desire for certain things that we want, and what happens is that actually when we look into this situation, it's only being happy and with what we get or what we don't get is actually completely based only on our way of thinking. So it's not related actually to the external things at all. And so why would I say that? Then perhaps it would be easiest to explain that through an example. For instance, most people in this world have an attraction towards money, and if people are receive money in some way, then they usually feel great happiness in relation to that. And that that's true for most people. But then again, if we look into the situation, then for instance, if you took someone whose situation in life had become very complicated in relation to money, who had experienced much suffering in relation to money. For instance, there had been a strong conflict within the family when over money, or someone who had actually been taken to court or jailed in relation to money, then you might find that you will find, that there are certain people who don't perceive money in a positive light. So, for instance, if you were to take one of those kind of people who've had a lot of bad experiences in relation to money, and you were to offer them a sum of money, then they may actually not have a feeling of happiness at all in relation to that situation. They may in fact see it, they may in fact become unhappy about it, and actually may see you as someone who is causing them a problem by the very offering of the money, because of their experience. So they get unhappy, they may even get angry about it. But of course, this is, for someone who this is someone who doesn't have actually a strong desire in relation to money based on their experience. So but if we were if it were a person who wished to have money, desired to have money, and money came to them, or you offered them money, then they would feel, oh, my desires have all been met, and feel a great sense of joy and delight that happened. But this example makes it very clear that it's not on the basis, the primary thing that creates the happiness or suffering is not here in this example, is not the basis of the money. It's actually the way of thinking, which is the primary sort of guide in whether the experience is positive or negative. So if you have desire, and for an object, and that wished for object comes to you, you'll feel great. If you desire not to have something and it comes to you, you'll feel suffering. So we can see that it's not the actual object itself which is what causes the happiness and suffering. For if somebody loves sort of knowledge and wisdom, and has the opportunity to meet a great scholar, then they may feel great happiness and delight at being able to do that. But there might be other people who really are quite averse to those kind of people, and would, if they were forced to meet them, would feel very uncomfortable and very unhappy. So we can see that the happiness that we desire depends very much on our internal state of mind. So we're not the internal state of mind we have some form of control over, but the external things which rely on external conditions are things that we're not able to really have that much control over. So then we see how important the mind is in wishing to achieve happiness and wishing to avoid suffering.
다 ngobu디라 되바 요베이나 되바 요베 ngobu디 총디 가서 가고 용거로 민데베 ngobu디 총베 가도 가서 미지바 용거로 다 ngo부 지부 용마 용세디 ngo부디 ngo부디 투네레면도 수수 생기 나로 딜은 되바 요메 디조렌도 다 딘디건 되바디 수수 생기 상동당지 인디간라 디 컨트롤 제도스
컨트롤 제도
컨트롤 당진 제도레스
love
다 당진 간데스 제고스로 디간 지당가 수기 수수기 이동와 생로 법이 무부 간데지 통송나리 통화 다른 되버지 레기래 어디 야도 디 정나 상사 순이 레기래 레베 카도 딜라 딜레디 쿠랑 신기래 로 신민지기래 단단가수 베 가서 그래 쌍루 시럽에 탈신 버시지네 무부 간데지 통바 있는데다 자라 간데지 통바 있는데 랑상코나 통화 다랑 쌍루 베 가서 그래 양다버지 랑상 레토에디 나수 단다디 차상지 공요 말어 디인디가나 이동어지 생의 법이 통하는 되버 내용 그래 되버 집의 장지 卷 말에 되버 집에 기진이버디라 싫어 비지 당지 딜은 되버지 세기 무부디 수수를 네버도 구버레베 야는 되버 집의 장래 디 수수를 네버도 구도 베세시로 수수 네버도 구구레 베세디 다 가상 쉬면 구구든 되버니버디 가는 되버를 타요 말스 구구라 시제기 구구죠로 네버도 구야 딜러 체요레 세상 네버도 구버지레베스 상지다 네버도 구버세디 코메나 싸워니 소제트 메데바 야나 코메바이나 수수수부라 가소레 지 쩐당 야나지 수부야 노스지 랑신 수분도是 错了说错了지 쩐지 제딩이 소리 싫어 지망상 차진지 망상 제딩이 또 근데지나 니버도 고버스 러초로 디세부차선 고버스에디 로 니버도 고망고스에디 가상 쉬에디 칼라사에디 니버도 가서 고구차디 거레스 다 고몬봉망부 고야기 칼라디 니버도 고버레스디 니버도 고버 마레스 딘데기 제버치도 디제 딘데기 상당지신 싫어긴 되벌 당진 가서 되벌 춘진치 디 제베 토네 디딩도 상무 신다지 가르당 그러시나 네 디슈는 망부차고도
또 같이 시위는 되게도 so in terms of objects of our happiness and the desired for objects coming and us feeling a sense of happiness and objects that we don't wish for coming and we're feeling a sense of unhappiness. Again, as we've mentioned, this unhappiness or happiness is not related to really the engagement with the actual object itself. It's not related to those external situations. It's more of an internal process. And the internal process is, as I said, is something that we have some more of control over, but the external process is the external situation and what comes and doesn't come is difficult for us to have control over. If we take so something appears to us to be attractive, and immediately that when something attractive to us appears, then our desire is there. It's a sort of fairly natural process that occurs, unless of course we're someone extremely wise, where anything that arises could be seen perhaps in a positive light. But for ordinary people, then it tends to be the case that when attractive things arise, there's a sense of interest or happiness, and when unattractive things arise, there's a negative frame of mind. So in that, just at that level of an attractive appearance and then some form of desire arising, this is not too sort of dangerous almost. But it's what happens after that, in the next moment after that, that can lead to the problems. So we have to look into the desired object and see whether we really need it, or whether it's just a kind of desire for it, or whether we really need it. So yesterday I mentioned this very important distinction between things that we need, our needs, and things that we just want, our needs and our wants. And there, of course, when we're talking about needs, there is a sort of measure. There is something that we can sort of evaluate as things that we really need. For instance, things that are required to live our lives, so that, for instance, our body and our health don't get too damaged, or there aren't sort of difficulties and faults coming in terms of our health, or just being able to live a life. So there are certain things which it's difficult to live without, if we miss them. So we have to have food, these kind of things. Food is an essential part of life, but we don't have to have millions of dollars. That's not something we actually need. That's something we may want, but it's not something we need. So what we have to do is use sort of wisdom to look into these desires, to sort of evaluate these desires.
차 탄제네 쩨다 제버 세지 요 말이 참마 지버시다 소 당 아주 두자 시부지데 인무부지 요인의 딜에 코란라 연den기 차양 망부요시现在第地方了第무부 탄제 자와래 디지 시고 소 디치고 디지 배자 샤바이나 주부 주무 세디 개치부 차고로 아주 미치엘라 고고 레디 주부 주무 세디 차 탄제네 지 연대마도 쨘매버레스나 주부 예배 진전에 강에 망부체요 주부 예디 주부로 뜬고로 뜬고그래 아니 개치시디 뜬고그래 군 되버디 뜬고그래 다 깔려 망부지요 주부 예배 강에 디요 주부 매버이는 매배 빈도지요래 뒤치 초란 주고 말에 내가 야부 용거래 망부지 빈도 세서 디순 차 넘버 탄제도 빈도 여봐도 넘버 탄제도 네버 여버세디 요 말다 세가 숨지리 디지 시고 디지 시고다 디지 시 네버라 컨트롤 제버라 네버라 당진 제버라 시르버 당진 제버라 디시고 다 디띵도 아니 나랑수 수수라니기 뉴버디 가듀이네 야제 동에요 디 국거디 가듀이니요 나랑수라 수수 뉴버디 수수 유엔네인 이너리 수수 다나신기 로종인 이너리 수수기 레가인 이너리 가린이네 나술로 국거 가듀이니요 버스 수수기 가수를 류다 세니를 바비 류세니지 뉴버를 바비 국거 야부지 가듀이니요 버다 야제 동에 국거디 넘버 탄제도 요 버다 수수 마다는 마도 다 야제 가수 땅도바이나 딜러바 제버지 투에요바 자제자리 제 디상 땅베 투네 센디 가두 이나야 센 디제드 데마데 센라 쪼어데 데마치 로 뭐부 시부지 종소네 다그 정버디 야부레 대한 콜라 종니 핀두제 유디 강에제 유에상 쇼신다데 통디간라 종용디 간라베 카셰지 종디 간라 가레베 벤 올림픽이 짐무쟁이 되네 시가 두디 간라베 세레게 미주 땅데 시기도 시부딘데 데네데 제국이 아유 미주 땅데 시기 야 올림픽 제무디니 젠딘 쇼소나 야 문이 시부지기도 다데 탈라 홍보를 상도 시가 투손다 시부지레 시가 투산 시부딘데 게 차요 말을 미란 자리 마도
so yeah, talalong. And so then so whatever sort of phenomena there are, the things that we desire or things that we wish to avoid, or the things that we desire, if we really look into them with this wisdom, then it's very clear that nothing is 100% perfect, and nothing is 100% faulty either. So, for instance, the things that we desire, they're not 100% perfect in the way that they are, and the things that we wish to avoid, we have actively dislike, they're not 100% faulty or bad. So not all attractive, although things may appear to us to be attractive, actually, if we look, they're not 100% attractive. And also things that we so they have fault. They have some kind of, when we look from a certain side, they have faults. When we take something that we dislike, but actually, if we look from one side, they also can be said to have qualities. So actually, all sort of phenomena are like this in the sense that they're more balanced. They're not, nothing is either completely good or completely bad. And so take the example of friends. So of course, in generally in life, it's people being having friends together, having friendship or relationships together is extremely important, and generally we generally tend to think of having friends as being a good thing, but also that having friends or having relationships is not always a good thing, because sometimes there can be difficult interactions or discussions and difficult circumstances, and also being alone and not having so many friends or a relationship is also has a positive side, in the sense that that it also means that you don't have to spend so much time sometimes on those kind of interactions, and maybe you can get on easier with your work or your other activities. So it's easy to see that everything is not always is not always one way, that it doesn't have all phenomena don't have just one aspect. And if we take this way of thinking as a basis, then this can be used to help us work to control our desire. So we should also really understand that we have the potential to improve this, to improve and to improve our situation, whether it's in the field of knowledge, or whether it would improve our physical health, or other aspects of our mind. How much we do that is of course up to how much we're prepared to do, but we always have there's always the opportunity for us to improve in all of these ways. And you have to, it has to be in balance and not falling into extremes. I mean, one very clear example at the moment is if we look at the Olympic Games and we see the competitors, and if somebody wins, they're overjoyed and completely, sort of jumping around, or overjoyed, amazed kind of thing. And then, of course, if somebody has lost or or failed to win, then they are distraught and weeping. And I think that this is really sort of falling into an extreme where you haven't been able to see that everything has another side to it. That's it.
상제 정된되기 동전이 뒤송도
Mm.
뒤제 탄제 메타바레스 나서 가를 통되어 참아 메타베랑신 계지 지베랑신 바 아샹장 루브루브도 쟁이 버지도 최소놓고 간주야기 딘데기 메타바 라베 신원신 뒤제 탄제 메타바스 아니 메타바 임바 장마레 나랑수 간 통되 뒤제 참아로 둥에든 지데버지 녀모보단 지데버지 간들 사제 탄제 둥야 참아로 둥에든 지데니 차디거스 나수 단다 간 농지에 참아로 세상 사제 탄제 둥야스 다 디자인 세기 말에 나수 간 통한 뒤제 참아로 동배랑신레스 동배랑신大지 지원은 간에 니드메 동배랑신 난게 칸나시 동배랑신 다 오늘 땡도 시워디 땡도 디워디 가레스 라운디간라 냥엘린 데버 시워스 다 생 녀모베 생디 당디오 녀모베디 타바스르체 생디 잘라스르체 다 녀모베 타베 당지신이 베 타베 당도 당지신 뺀 구주쿠란 자세메 데버 진데기 베 타베 당지신이 동에 나수기 나디고로 다 녀모베 타바디 파 제소나 타바디 파 또네 제와이나 다 녀모베 칭월레 파 타로죠 당버디를 파 가서 당버디 지 발려지니 쇠시기 차윤디가라 쇠려시부 차야죠 디나신 녀모베 칭월레 탈소나 땡디 디와리 생기 나로로 가서 그러다 나제 차도 되자세 디제기 신버디 파 뢰투소나 당원에기 디와디레스 어디 숨고도 세상 디 자든 시디 생라 샤고 다디 샤닝 당가서 가선 상디이다
Love that. And so so the Buddha spoke in a way of sort of putting together sort of a summary of this kind of experience, where he says to us in the Four Seals, where he says all compounded phenomena are impermanent. They're in the speaking to the situation I've just talked about. All compounded phenomena are impermanent. They're in the nature of momentarily disintegrating, and if they come into contact with a particular kind of condition, the coarse phenomena will just become non-existent. They'll disintegrate. Not only are all phenomena impermanent, but they're also kind of related to or mixed with suffering or dissatisfaction. That and so he says in the second seal that all contaminated phenomena are in the nature of suffering. And not only are they in the nature of suffering, but also if we look into them, we find that they are empty of any kind of self in existence or intrinsic existence. So when you look into phenomena, you can't actually find that intrinsic phenomena. So they're like this, like the sky. And then in the last of the seals, he talks about nirvana is peace. And what this is really saying is to talk about what is stable happiness, because and if we imagine our current situation where our mind is sort of in the center, but our mind has been like a stone or something, but our mind has been tied up and bound up by a kind of rope of all the mental afflictions and obscurations. And in this situation, we experience tremendous suffering. If we imagine it like that, then the nirvana would be, or the liberation would be, if we were able to cut all of the rope of the mental afflictions which bind us. If we were able to cut through that rope and to release that, so we would be released from the bondage of that rope, then we would be released into a state of nirvana, and that is what we call the real kind of true stable happiness. At the moment, unless we are released from that situation where the mental afflictions bind us and we're not free from them, then we'll always fall prey to suffering through pride, competitiveness, jealousy, etc. So that releasing ourselves from the mental afflictions, attaining nirvana, is the only stable happiness. That's all. 네, 림시디 식지 레리레리 네 콘솔라 파 덤비 에네 드기르웨 식지
슈루가 안란디 송샤나 로는 뒤제사그로
low yeah. Okay, yeah, andang, yeah. So then now I'm going to refer to verse number 26. Los. And for the participants, what I'll do is I'll actually read Adam Percy's translation because that's the one that will be shown on the screen. So I'll use the translation on the screen.
디나라 샤르마송.
Shamasana, Aleo. Shadawa.
용그리베 디나 용은 야우도.
So Rimshi's just checking if you're going to put it up on the screen. It's good if you put it up. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Lost. How?
다 디네마 로군지 가요지 디네마 어디 총자서 어디지? 다 뭐지?
26. 26.
36
26, yeah. 26.
26. 어디다? 아지베 이모 아무고. 다디 시와라 랑니지 상주지 생라 평양 망부 요르스 강라 송인바 디 리베 주지디 단도마 송용고 단도 니네마.
So then working down through these verses from 26 onwards, we're in the section of the text where Shantideva is establishing with reason the benefits of bodhicitta as we'd spoken about before.
다 디슐가 지디 가르송거스나 다 상주지 센스에 디다 심바장부 삼바장부 타투버디 순라지기다 삼바장부디 통바이너리 튜바이너리 차마 가고야기자 근데 펜베 삼바스라디간 펜베 삼바를 미가기 미수지메 버려 미신다지기 수술로서 펜바주디 콩알 펜바 하산난다 지기도 시진 가부 용케마도 메가기 지요 말 세상 로신진 탄지 가와지비주 마세 로신진 탄지 디와드 뎀버치에기 주주순데 상류 삼바상부터 샤디고 마세 신진 탄지지 동행 좀버시비 미지지스는 아주 센주지 지스라와나신 간도 동행 지 나사디 파 자주긴게 미낭신 디스거다 신진 탄지지 동행 지 나사 참아 자주긴게 미다부디 다 장주기 센디로스 다디 딜러 표현다 디 공발르디네 기와 같이 요르세 장가 간데스 찍고스 거다 딜러 지들이 제지낭스 디 장가 찌요 요마스 장가 찌에스 요마리스페 아까 나신 자치자네 어디 숨 거다 표현.
And so then so what verse 26 is essentially saying to us is that the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, is in a sense we can talk about it as the ultimate state of good-heartedness and kind-heartedness. If the ultimate limit of kind-heartedness would be bodhicitta, and nobody I don't think there's anybody who sees beneficial minds or someone wishing to benefit them or someone sincerely wishing to help or be a benefit, and the mind that inspires that kind of feeling. I don't think there's anybody who sees that in a negative light at all. So this kind of mind that wishes to relieve all of the pain of the world. So it says the elixir, the second line says this elixir that heals the suffering of all beings. So a source of joy for all in cyclic existence, but also something that relieves all the illness and sickness of all of the sentient beings. Then it says this precious jewel within the mind. How could this be? Such merit ever be evaluated? How could you calculate that? It's like the vastness of the sky. How could it be calculated? Vasa.
다디 오기 슐가 지디 가르송거스나 다 상주지 센다 파샤스 거다 뱀마스 상주지 센 rum부치 세디도 베 할레 자짐죠 디 파샤 지당기 지 미지러 삼보 장부지 지웨이나 구 야부 종로 지나 삼베 딘데기 삼보 장부 중세 장지 지웨이나야 딘데기 편배 삼보 춘중지 임베이나야 편배 삼보 디 상제 베 장년 대바래다 상제 장년 대바라 최바 빠드메버 표월에 지거도 파바 송요레스 미지르 삼보 장부 중세지 지버 장 있어 거다 삼보 장부 중세지 지버이나 삼보 장부 중세지 지비 기워 디당 상제 장매발로 배 최고 시부지 표지진이다. 세동우의 림부치로서 최고 빠드매바 표인 하장기 겨울로 지사그로. 딘데기 상제 장매로 최고 장매바 표기 겨울다 군이 두르수나. 편배 삼부 중세지 지워디 편치기레스.
Ah.
미지의 편배 삼부 중세지 지워디. 다 딘데기 배 최고 친구 여봐이나. 난가 만류베 로 난가 태두베 신제 탕지 러 편배 삼부 지워이나 신제 탕지 디워드 덴버 제구 삼배 상주의 센티를 찾으면이나 다디 편디다 다자니 칸이 마시에 돼지다 딘데지 요르스지 체자 돼자니 요 말이스 거다 디덴 좀 메주고 있어 어디.
So then the next verse, which is verse 27, so it says, for if the simple wish to benefit others surpasses offerings made before the Buddhas. So let's put bodhicitta aside for a minute. If we just took the someone's simple wish to help someone in a good heart, a good heart, the sort of mind of someone who we consider to be, they're a really good person. They have really good way of thinking. Just engage in a very small sort of beneficial activity, or just have the simple wish to be a benefit. That compared to someone who had made vast offerings of gold and silver and cloud-like offerings to all before all the Buddhas, it would still be the case that even that simple wish to be of benefit to others would easily surpass the virtue and merit of the merit of making all of those offerings. So that's just a simple wish to benefit. Now, if we take the situation of bodhicitta, where wishing to be of benefit and welfare to every single sentient being, as out to the limits of space, and to be able to be of positive benefit to them, then it's impossible to really speak about the virtue and merit of that kind of state of mind.
다디 오디 도바 신다시 레버레 도바 가르 레버를 디강라 다 삼바 잠부디 딘데기 짜침부 임바이나 나수 참매베 삼바 잠부 치치시네 삼바 잠부를 디네 디오 조야디 제고에 순르지 요디 다 나수 디 지기오 마로 다디 마제디 가투 바레스 가발도 투 바레스다 삼바 잠부기 디오 용구요 딘데지 차디 요디 디차 요바이나 나수 디 제만시에디 가르차버를 디강라 다 투서 딘딜을 투바레스 동엔 도른데 신유전 동엔 이런 거 뭐죠 동엔 도에기 삼바다 참말로 요르디 이내 동에기 슈를 파카디는 주어나신 동에 방구 삼바 요바 이내야 동에 유세기 슈를 미종니 충분하신 주디 대원 되기 요르디 데베 디오디 체도 파 도시다만 나신지 제디가 오레스 디가바 투디르스 러디간라 미시베 미시몬베 신wan도 주바 동에기 주디 동에기 주인바 미시바 대 주디 대 주인부 마시바 다 대주 가르스나 펜베 삼바당 싫어 다음에 또 싫어 쉬고 있는데 싫어 낭제기 싫어 차디고로 싫어당 펜베 삼바 차디고 디 문에지는 대주리디 대주인부 통기어 말했어 디 노주 쇼서 디니 쇼바레스 거다.
And so then let's say that there's the next verse 29, verse 28, then contains a sort of analysis of, we know that having a good heart, having positive states of mind is a good thing in general, but then why don't we actually engage in those? Why don't we put those things into practice? And as the verse states here, although seeking to avoid pain, they run headlong into suffering. They long for happiness, but destroy it as if it were their enemy. So we have this way in which we have a desire for happiness, and yet somehow we manage to find ourselves running headlong towards suffering. we wish to avoid suffering. Um, we always wish to avoid suffering, but we always find ourselves running into it and encountering it. And so the question is, why is that the case? And what Shantideva gives us the answer and says to us that it's our ignorance and delusion, and specifically our ignorance and delusion about what are the causes of suffering, and what are the causes of happiness. So it's there are all kinds of delusion and ignorance, but specifically the delusion and ignorance related to the causes of suffering and the causes of happiness. And if we understand that, if we are able to sort of generate positive, beneficial states of minds wishing to benefit, if we also employ discriminating wisdom, and also sort of the wisdom understanding the lack of lack of self, the wisdom, the discriminating wisdom, understanding the lack of self, then it is possible for us to sort of avoid suffering and attain the happiness that we wish for.
다디네 디오기 슐가 니디기 치신다 디좀 망고에 게민도 다디낭로라 간던 디송도 다 상주 신라 상바 타바네 펜베 상바 상주지 신 주를 제용디 간라 다 신진 신지 동에 세야기 체도 동에레 시유 랑두르지 터로 랑마자와 가르레 도로 가르레시 랑두르지 터 된거로 터 된기 베젠치 디간라 신진 신기 마리베 메버디 세워지기로 상주기 신기 왕기 상주지 신유버이나 신진 신 동에레 주에기 도시지기리 신진 신라 동에레 주에 랑된기 베젠치기로 세상 상주지 신디 신진 신지 마리베 멤버디 세워지기 터시디 지기리 스틸러디네 세상 다 상주기 신 디낭신기 지 핀도 유여바다 디낭신기 가랑소라 가소리 빈자드 마소 다 가소 빈자스라고는 샤타긴 저 유여바디 빈자지고로 다 상류토니 빈자세디 다 상주기 신 유여바이나 다 상주기 신의 합의 신진 신의 타니부 차야지 요마로다 신진 신다 상모 수수기 소낭신 지고로 세상 상주기 신의 합의 빈자시 신이지 빈자다 빈체당 gen latin de yo mares di de sombe sunan yo mares o di sun gordan to dina shulu ni dirida tenda sida mallo no kure tatida
so, and so the next two verses are verses 29 and 30, and in these verses it talks about how to satisfy those who lack real happiness with joy, and to cut through their sufferings, and to bring an end to their delusion. And so it talks about this beneficial mind of bodhicitta, and how it's able to cut through others' suffering, and to bring them every kind of joy, and to help satisfy them with every kind of joy. So this is sort of talking about one of the powers of bodhicitta, but here it's important to remember that there is a process to that, in the sense that, in some sense, explaining to others what are the things to be adopted and what are the things to be abandoned, and sort of revealing the path on which to walk in order to do that, is also a part of that. And it's also and so it says, what in verse 30, clearing away the confusion, and where is there a comparable virtue such as bodhicitta, and where is there a similar merit like this? And so we have to also think about how we tend to think of when we tend to think of people related to us, particularly our relations and relatives, then we tend to think of these in relation to sort of our flesh and blood. We call them our flesh and blood, and that's how we think of. But actually, with the mind of bodhicitta, every there's no sentient being which is not sort of like held to ourselves as being like our life so to speak, that are important as our life to us. So we this beneficial state of mind is there's no comparable virtue and no a similar kind of merit or friend to us. That's all.
다디 오디 지당 아주 지수 나로라 파 루부지 제외이나 파 루부지 지네 미디기 루부지에디 가진의 지지진 지마출 진행 제용디 간라 진행 제시나 디 야부지로 디 미디 진행 제시도스 장내하고도 세 딘데 지데나 딘데 지고로 지데나 술 장불의 장내 가진 지된 제신이 디양지 되어 동유베 유를 지기여이나 다 난가다냐베 신진기 출게 제유명 이거요마 난가다냐베 신진 참하게 수수르게 제요마로 제 매버 이나야 수수기 상주주도 신진이 난가다냐베 신진의 파 루부제야다 신지 탄지기 동에 주야기 동에레 주야기 타오디 제기성 딘제기 삼보zam부 제용디간 딘제 삼보zam부디다 다 표현 빠도 매버 유버지다 가수라 하장기베
And so then in verse 31 it speaks about how, you know, it speaks about repaying someone in a simple sort of worldly sense, repaying a kindness. So in the sort of society, it's generally, you know, somebody receives a kindness or some kind of benefit from another person, and then they they will feel grateful for that situation and then have a wish to repay that kindness. And this is and then to go and actually engage in some form of some way of repaying that kindness. And this in society, this is something which is considered to be well looked on. It's considered to be very good, and it's in the worldly life it's praised, as it says in the verse 31. It's worthy of some praise to repay a good deed. But then if you have the Bodhisattva, so that but in that context there's no relationship with all the other sentient beings. It's just a kind of worldly society way. Then if you take the great Bodhisattvas and with that the mind of Bodhicitta, which has that strong wish, the Bodhisattvas who embody that mind of Bodhicitta with the strong wish to be of benefit, a maximum benefit to all of the sentient beings, these sentient beings who are limitless, and to be able to who even wish to liberate, to help all of the sentient beings unbidden, so they don't they're not even without being requested, are wish to liberate all sentient beings from the samsaric world, and to engage in methods which will help them to do that. Then what again, how could you measure that kind of state of mind when even ordinary people in society are praised for repaying just a small deed, good deed?
다디 오기 슐루가 니디 디송고르다 배는 아주 낭진 미 카셰지제 짐버 동색이 위디야 미 카셰지마도 개매베제 아니 짐버 동야기 제디야 지 칼라 틴지로 니고 칼라 순지 야미 공다기 칼라 순 뒤 칼라 뒤지지 칼라데 제베 카도딜라야 네제 니시스 제베 카도딜라야지 구셔다 야로 시부지진 제에 개매베제 구도스 가서다 순르지 다춘디 사슈승이 순르지 마도스 만베 순르지 딘데기 통총기 난주 순르지 예베 토네 제베지 딘데지 제네 아니 미 방구 민뉴뇨티기 니마치 가서 니미셰가 칼라 뒤지 제네 두고 잡을 제베이나야 디안 쿠이 뭐 당송 세지 쿠이 미티줄의 뭐 당송 세지 러그로스 디아지 자오 야부 집에 제는 지대는 근데 지로 시다 제당 대야지 또 가소리 지 투 가르제 투 투마기 제가 요 이거 안에만 오르지 지게 요소는 근데 있지 난주토니 제가 있나야 아니 미디기 방구 민유뉴치기 니마 세가기 두고디 두고도 왜 등에 세워 제가 있나 아니 개와 제가 인시 주 꾸르스 디 개와 제가레스 라그로스 다베 상주 심바승이디 로 장타 예라스 저 동서기 유디 신진 용수 주어셔 다 장가 요 말다 저 나가다냐베 신진 유디야 베 나가다냐베 신진 뉴뉴지레마소 아니 콜라 제대한 칼라다고 뒤지기 칼라다고 많이 버시 일을 상버 탕지 주버지 일을 상버 탕지 주버지 통이기 디워시비 디워라노메 상제지 구방디 디제인스 제기 무부디야베 상버 탕지 주버지 투킹기 상제지 구방디 제기 디제대한 다리 팅지마도 제기미 세메버지 뒤다도 신진라로 뒤다도 신진 나 상제지 구방 투베 터 지긴 상제지 구방 투베 지긴 시신이 뒤다도 상제지 구방의 신진라마 제야당 신진나 상제지 구방 투투에기 터시 지긴 슬라윤디가나 다 딘제기 심바디다 다 할레베 표현 친구 여버디 다 주먹고 버리스 이스보다 유기 차는 제버시고 쇼사송 어디 송거다
And so in the next I think it's the next two verses 32 and verse 33 it talks about two sort of situations which Shantideva compares, where he says how in verse 32 even in the world certain kinds of very simple generosity are still valued as still valued as generous acts and as virtuous things. For instance, Shantideva gives us an example in the world where in the text where he says that somebody a person gives as the focus of their generosity takes as just a couple of people, one or just a few people, maybe a few sort of poverty-stricken people, and they give only a tiny amount of food, so not even enough food for a full day, maybe just enough food to fill up the poor person's stomach for a lunchtime or a dinner or just one time. And also, so a small number of people with a tiny amount of food, and also in a giving in a very disrespectful way. So perhaps looking down on the object, the recipient of their generosity, in a kind of haughty way of someone in a high position looking down on someone in a low position, in a kind of very disrespectful and undervaluing kind of manner. Even in this situation, it says such people are sometimes honored by the world as being virtuous. So, and then in verse 33, it says to us, well, this, you can't even speak about the comparison. It doesn't even compare with in this case, the generosity of the Bodhisattvas, who take every single sentient being, the whole infinity of sentient beings, as it says in the root text, as their object of generosity. So not just a few people, but the entire infinity of sentient beings as the object of generosity, the countless sentient beings. And it's not just giving a small amount of food or even food at all, because essentially the bodhisattvas wish to constantly offer and hope to fulfill every wish of the sentient beings, which is, of course, in the ultimate sense, the wishing to help the unsurpassable happiness, the highest and unsurpassed state of enlightenment, and helping them either in directly with methods or showing them the methods in order to help them, all of the sentient beings, to fulfill all of every single one of their needs by attaining the unsurpassable state of complete enlightenment. So then how could you compare these? What need to speak of the merit of that kind of generosity?
다디 오디라 디송고르다 상주지 생라 편된데 빠도메버 요르디 야 디기 도쇼디라 상주 심바 상주지 생주르 데메 강사디라 나수 서서제나 마도 게시디라 마구바당 삼방님버지버 딘데제웨인 하장기 니미침부 요레스 베나 가인스나 상주 심바디다 신진 탄지기 진다 치슈스는 자고라 신진 탄지 상제기 살이야 치인스 거다고 아소기 진다 유는면디 무쟁이 진다디 말해 로 땡도 뒤 상제지 구판 지킨기 진다 친구들이 근데 제세 상주심바 신진기 된 코랑기 단둘랑네 나가다니면 신진지 된 지긴 승이기 된데기 비 제세 상주심바 신진 탄제기 진다 딜라스 삼방님바 계지장치와이나 계지지지와이나 계지지라 가서 계지지지와이나 계지 마 지라 님베 삼방님바 지바 디기 냐오나 지야기 냐오나 개바니 개바다 개바지스로 어디가 할레베 뒤세진부지 루 동슈 템보 mam부때 요래 다 개바지기신라 냐오나 지야기 랭이 버사그레스 다 기지마 니기신라 삼방님바 지바이나 기지마 지세디 디리 베는 가수 싱구토베 자지라 기지마 지스그 나중이나로 지스다 기지마 미스그 기지마 송스그 다딜라 샤조지 기지마 스로 근데기 삼방님바디 기지마 장가 가수 지바이나리 디 장가다 냠비 냐오나 지야기 랭이 버사그레스 할레베 니미 친구레스 그렇다
So then the next verse talks about the opposite situation. So that's talking about the verses prior to that are speaking about the vast merit that the bodhisattvas accrue. But then it also talks about how the Buddha has said that this is in verse 34 that if the opposite can be the case, that the great fault of developing anger and hostility towards these heirs of the Buddha, the bodhisattvas, the ones who have the mind of bodhicitta in their continuum. And so these beings, these bodhisattvas, have the wish not just to give food or money or simple sort of these kind of simple things. They're not they have taken others completely to their heart and wish in every moment, not just developing this wish for a short time, but in all the time, in every moment, they are thinking of the wish to be able to attain enlightenment and to lead all sentient beings to the unsurpassed state of enlightenment. So those beings who have that kind of mind in their continuum, then for someone who develops anger and aversion or anger or hostility towards that kind of a being with that kind of mind, will create a tremendous fault. And it's a terrible action. And it says in the text that the Buddha has said that for as many moments as of their malice or anger towards that kind of bodhisattva, then for that number of moments, that person will have to languish in the hells for an eon. So for each moment, so sometimes when we talk about a snap of the fingers, we talk about a moment in which a particular activity becomes complete. It's a kind of technical way of saying it. So that just in each moment like that of when we snap our fingers, even then for each moment of that anger towards a bodhisattva, that person would have to spend an eon languishing in the hell realms.
다디 오디라 양 상주 심벌라 대바지 가와지 센티네 당와당 구바치 제바이나 다 기지리라 양 쇠낭 다기 디바사야 딜레 하베 다 쇠나 바드메 사그레스 제부 치버진 기지리라 쇠나 바드메 산 딘제부 가서 그래 디바사발레 하바 딘제기 제부 치버진 용그레스 지지 슐루가 가사 디오마디
So just an hour.
디잔도 마세베 제세 상주 심버세디 쿠란기 소라 바바이너레 미신다지 쿠란라 소라 바베 뉴바제바이너레 상주 심버기 생기 나로라 쿠용알라 뉴바지 송스제지니 상주 심베 생기 나로라 콩주당 뉴발라 뉴렌제야당 딘데기 심바 구스투부디 용구마레스 수르 수르 뉴바제바이네 상주 심버 쿠란기 생기 나로라 뉴제 딜라 미네 니지 침보당 다나 신기 뉴제 딜라 미네 가소레 게 삼바 다 쿠란 야부 용로제나 삼바 쿠이다 디버사근도 아크 삼베 틴제기베 상주스 뭐 쿠란기 냥민디 고네 공비트 피기레스 무슨거다디 슐루가 오마디
And so so the last two verses of the first chapter here, in verse 35, so we've talked about how the terrible fault and suffering that will come from developing anger towards a bodhisattva. But then in verse 35 it says, but it will lead, in the second line it says, will yield benefits in still greater measure, which means greater measure than the suffering that will come from developing the anger, if we are to look on the bodhisattvas well, to feel a great sense of affection towards them and have devotion and faith in them, then for each moment of that, then the virtue, a tremendous amount of merit will arise for that person. And also one very important factor is to that the bodhisattvas, even when they do face great harm or aggression or sort of harm or aversion from someone, they never have that sense of wishing to retaliate in any way. They always have that understanding that they always have the wish that the other sentient being will always come to happiness, and they sort of have that sense of, oh no, it's terrible, they're engaging in negative actions, and always wish them have positive thoughts towards them, so that the bodhisattva actually becomes that harm or aggression or aversion that comes from other beings actually serves as a cause for the bodhisattva to actually increase and strengthen their own practice in the process. So they never not only do they not retaliate, but they have the wish for the other being's happiness, and it strengthens their practice.
지제 타마디 료당베 다 상주지 생름부지 수지了주了지여버이나레 강사디기 아니 가서 tinje 상주지 생주了지킹기 강사디 미임버이나레 라임버이나레 준루임버이나레 아니 샤샤유 유수주버레 스거다 다 상주지 수주了여버이나다 부메지 주了여버이나 신진 하다 집에서 지딩 용지 샤샤유 유수주버레스 지바지 주了상주게 생주了지원 지바디 단 가서 그래 아주 지 미지속이 나로 양고 리토르 제비지지 고 리멤버레스 근데 요르 근데 시에죠로 근데 리토르 말레기 계제 개구지요 말에 수주了상주게 생주了지원이나 안디 베 그의 감배셔로 샤세에 유수주버레 스고다 둔두지 주了상주게 생주了지원이나 그 실록이 바바디 둔두리 상루디 미 상벌에 하장기베 사바 시부집에 상루디 미상 상루를 장주 동주기 하바 차고로 상주기 생유버인 세상디 샤세 유수주버리 딜러 샤세 시부디 고로 샤세 시스 다 상주 심버싱이 상주지 생주를 지사딩은 상주지 생디 다 할레버지렌도 생진 용주다 상당고로 진짜기 상부 자치무지 뒤앞에 뒤다도 생진기 된치 생진기 된구나 조진이 지긴 진짜기 배 류동 자치무지 제윤디가라 진짜기 상주 심버딜라 파 뇌버제버이나야 수수수라 뇌버제긴기 미딜라 시다 뇌버제버를 딘 디바사그리 디벤제버때 도지마도 용구 말했디 이내 뇌버제스기 유디 상주 심버 인상 상주 심버든 저지 중지시니 저어 상부든 저어 님버스는 저어지 중버다고 저어지 중에 무시버도 마손 되지 차용디가라 타마딜라 뇌버제버이나야 뇌버제는 저어지 차버 디진지시니 뇌버제긴기 수수딜라야 수수라야 안타르지 가수거래 라노메 상제지 구방 토야다 양지 사담미 구방 토야기 딘제기베 인제부 대원 중에 유바 딘제지 차디고 그래 세상 디도스 킨사부지도 가수 야진부지
Log. So then, so in the last verse, then it says to us, last verse of chapter 1, it says to us where I bow down before all those in whom this precious sacred mind is born. So anyone who has given rise to this precious mind of bodhicitta in their in their mental continuum, and then in their mind streams, then I bow down before them. I prostrate to them. I pay homage to them and bow down to any all those in whom this precious mind is born. So this, this could be. You have to think of this on a wider level. It could be a human being, a person. It could be a god. It could be an animal. It could be there are all kinds of beings that have bodhicitta within their mind streams, and the object, whether it's male, female, or younger, like a child, or older, there should anyone who has this kind of mind of bodhicitta in their mind stream is an object of veneration. And so, for instance, as even a child, or that we see in society where there are people born into a kind of higher high families of higher status, like the children of a king and queen or something like that. So what it's saying is that there'll be no discrimination in terms of those kind of contexts, but only anyone or any animal or being or whoever they are who is given rise to bodhicitta in their mind stream, that those people will be an object of veneration, and we would touch their feet with our head as a. And the last two lines where it says, I take refuge in these great sources of joy who bring bliss even to those who harm them. So this is also, these bodhisattvas have this incredible mind, and which wishes only, in every moment to be of some kind of beneficial use, to provide welfare for other sentient beings. And of course, there can be situations where there is someone who wishes to harm that kind of bodhisattva, and of course, yes, committing some kind of aggressive or negative action in relation to the bodhisattva, there is some kind of negative action that arises there for the person who is doing the harm. But there's this, what this last line says, who bring bliss even to those who harm them, is to say that even though there may be some negative result because of that person wishing to harm and engaging in harm against the bodhisattva, that whether that relationship is created between them both, and whether that relationship is good or bad, that relationship acts as a causal condition, because of the power of the bodhisattvas, that in the future those the people who set out to harm the Bodhisattva can be born in maybe in the human realm or in the God realm, and actually even start to proceed on the path towards the unsurpassed, fully enlightened state. Now, this is something incredible and hard to imagine, but that's what Shantideva is saying to us.
디송구도 상제 중딘 대지 꾸르 나마지 거라 제부 진낭베 거라 제부 샴베 떡세 제부 딘낭베 거라 아니 쿠란기 굴류디 뉴징알라 다 뉴징스나 메마인기 리순르지로 마인베 리지로 뉴징알라 파 심바 땅치시네 뉴징아디 상제 제부 샴베 떡이 꾸이 차디도 상마 통바로 차심바 땅니 차요라. 오늘 저는 뉴징아디 제부 샴베떡이 꾸이 차딘 지지지네 녀버제고로. 녀버제기 요르디다 녀버제베 제부 님버지의 수도 요르디 이나야 제부 샴베떡도 상주선바 인디가 디 제부 샴베떡던 저지 차디가 제부 샴베떡지 단단히 쿠란소라 차기 심바 땅 번디 게 자유 투了店的毛巴了我上节为那个了光出了区级地区但的差的毛巴了区级地区你先把的东土把修些米朗的特别忘记你大家给东把下去土把价格了配的讲了送去当不能的讲了快点我的设计什么我有了我你的去当不送色的库存我下不了库存我的我上节中的那个库存我嘛节目上面都去告诉差什么东西，女性啊的差点多。想去什么了？怕女不结为那样，他们的人这不也不去推吧？听这一边我是听不起也送过的。
So these are sort of amazing situations, and actually, in a previous life of the Buddha before he was enlightened, he appeared as a king, and there were five. I think it's king. I don't know the name exactly. Something like king of compassion or something. And there were five non-human kind of beings who wished to kind of take away his blood, and of course there's kind of stealing away the blood of a highly realized being is definitely of a bodhisattva is a bad result. Will bring a bad result, but actually the Buddha the Buddha in that previous life essentially sort of gave away his blood at that time, but he made a prayer that when I become fully enlightened, instead of giving away my blood to them, may I be able to give them the nectar of the Dharma. And so when the Buddha was born as the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, then those five sort of non-human kind of spirits who would wish to take his blood became his five principal disciples. So then we can see who he first taught the Dharma to. So then we can see that although this is an incredible sort of beyond a kind of imagination sort of thing, but we can see that although something which started out with a motivation to harm, because of the power of the Bodhisattva, in the end became something positive.
리운니와 숨바치다 사사 말해 가상 제외는 리운니와 숨바 사투사를 전부 레디 다 용해미도 리우 당부디 디샤 다 몽발라 니와 숨바다 샹한테니 마시에 국어 좀 있는 가서 준비를 배수해지 다 다리디의 창샤네 저유웨이나 저트니시웨이나.
So originally when we had talked about holding these teachings, I had thought that I might be able to complete chapters 1, 2, and 3. But I think what we'll do is we'll leave chapter. I'll stop teaching from the text now, and we'll leave it at the end of chapter 1, and then in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to. If an opportunity arises, we'll do chapters 2 and 3, and then also the chapters beyond that. So I think what we'll do today is leave Shantideva's text at the end of chapter 1 and have a question and answer session.
오다 바다지 로토나 빼야고요다. 당아주 미스제당 당 뒤준의 상동당 네게티브 이모션 디 녀모비 루지디강의 컨테스트 동네 제고버디 시원이 송샤요다디. 대배 양양도고 니마 따버시 또시지 로고에디 개치무시오래다디. 핀도 치무베 수수 핑게래다.
And so, although we'll leave it here for now, I strongly advise that, particularly the later chapters, chapter 6 on the chapter on patience, and chapter 8 on the which is a chapter on concentration on meditative absorption. They really contain a lot of good advice about in terms of even in terms of our daily lives as well as our spiritual lives, and it's give us many kind of methods with which to counteract our mental afflictions. And so it's really beneficial if we can every day read these chapters again and again. Is really ourselves, we ourselves should read again and again these chapters, and because they're a source of tremendous benefit.
There's a great question from, who's it from? Andrea. In that instance, with the 5 beings that took the Buddha's blood, did they have to spend time first in the hells before having the opportunity to learn the Dharma from the Buddha in a future life?
Sikchi Tamadan Jawe Rimshiki Sangi Namtarki Korsomboru de Kodena Dinzuki Nyoma de Mi Mayan Bena Dingzu Sangi ki Tra Tone and a Chisu de Sangi Janchusan Bede and Drelwe de Konzo Chisu de Kona de Che Sanjiki Kur Nususoiki Sonsa de Chares Di Barala. Mi mayan benadin zuki cha toye tola dik basahegi tola konsin gunumbu nyewala dugoberbe songdua.
지당 랭이 뭐 휴치무 싸워이나 동해바 제부 동해바도 뭐 중이 뭐 휴치무 싸워이나 제부 님 뭐 휴치무 용해도 구춘이로 이 돈에 상담을 있나 딘딘 다 상주 심벌로 뉴버 제거를 딘제부 상주 심벌스는 신진 탄제지 구서낭시로 다 신진 탄제기 내가 징이 내가 러치무 상로 러치무 딜레 하베 상로 러치무 동메 통이기 미디 차디고 다 딘제기 미자치무지라 뉴버 제디건 딘딘 동해 바도메 뭐 용고해지 구 춘이긴 주당 랑신긴 주당 그 돈에 용고해지 수바치 퇴시레스.
Well, yeah, I think that if normally, if we talk about committing very terrible and negative acts, then usually it's the kind of it's the natural process that a very terrible negative acts have a very terrible negative result of great suffering. This kind of the natural law in some sense. So then, if you looked at the situation at the time that the Buddha was a bodhisattva, and who had that motivation to almost like a sort of representative of representing all of the sentient beings with such a vast kind of mental framework, then if you imagine committing some very harmful negative act towards a being like that, then you would imagine that there would be some form of very immeasurable kind of suffering that would arise, would result from that kind of negative action.
단다 뒤로 지당 가수 천당 계수나 천당 계유 니버디 천강기 땅용으로 다 불리스 땅교연들이 천강기 땅교연들 디 천당 계수로 그 천당 계유 니치 포구로 징계 계수나 딘제기 당초로 다 단다 가랑수 밀 뉴버지기 레가디 지당기 제거 시라버지 제거지기 천당 계만 계스 계제자 말에 디 랑생기 천당 계주고 그러 밀 뉴버지디 뉴버 제주고 말어 수수의 뉴버지는 지금도 수수의 뉴버지 다 롱마르 그 두자시우도 러고로 세상 밀 뉴버지의 디 랑생기 천당 계고 랑생기 천당 계디간라 디단 계유 니체지 랑생기 돈이 니체지 포용고래 다디 레준데스는 어디서 거다 인축으로 하다 디베 강무에도 튜머스는 지도하디
So if we look in terms of regular life and regular situation, if somebody crosses the line of the law, transgresses the law, then they're taken to court or jailed. This kind of in a regular way that things are, and so if we were to perform, when we perform very grave negative actions, then let's put aside the idea of transgressing, a certain law in a certain country or anything like that, but actually in some way, a kind of, perhaps we could call it a moral law, has been transgressed by doing negative, very bad negative actions, and so they are. So in that context, they are bad actions because they sort of transgress the kind of moral context, and then so it would seem natural that if you do something very negative, then you will receive a very negative result. It sort of seems to be a little bit in accord with the way things work in the ordinary world. Yeah.
Rinpoche, I'm sorry I missed the second half of yesterday, so I'm not sure if you covered this, but in the beginning of the teaching you had talked about the two categories to life, the happiness we wish for and the suffering we wish to avoid. And you talked about having pleasurable feelings in the mind and the body. And you talked a lot about tsorwa, of feelings a lot. Is it because our feelings as a mental factor or aggregate is covering our mind that we don't even think that it's the mind that we're actually trying to address? And so when we're studying something like Shantideva, we are trying to reassess the way we examine what we think our feelings actually are, and not just assume that they're going to be negative and positive.
타마타마디 구마송이
Yeah, because digi rimshaki ki nansu chidan digi they were trubada dugnia boyad or she medua low.
달리스다
Bless her. Kisan ajadegi kisan digi they were trubada dugnia sana mebezo boyad or she the nansu kasedi nansuki so ki tola do chadu dua nanzu so kase semjung so do she ki tola monche with the chadu dus and it degi and di kase di so degi nanzu peche 난수기 소어되기 난수기 샘도시디 캡두기도 난수 생컨데 이나되기 소어든수 저 가야도시 그 캡도시 체기도 스니 난수 소 준주기 중 준주글 소pan 난신 안데 난수기 소어 컨데 이나 14월 다에기 부기 쉬기 체두 somber 베스트로시 총기도와 난수错了 non ci danno solo cosa sewed peishi tongim dus and the sewed into sewer toya dan ship ju chela so but into ship su diala nansu jinju di gi shung di nansu sewed into gi ting sabo do shi dago de jum sen do shi somber bes this card
재미도. 아니, 다 체험도 녜지 러시아나.
네.
다 뒤로 지당 초로세디 뒤로 상루로 강기 상루로 비제낭루로 시바세 차리고로 다 쿨라 카도요 말에 쿨라 수다요 말에 다 간데스 하고 그랬으나 그 초로스는 수수기 초되기도 용되기도 지부 매베걸 나 지부 민두스 만지버지 초도 지부 예베걸 나 지발라 상사 지베 나와지 제낭 샤야지 지베 용어지 용어지 리기도 생기낭로라 지발라 지랑랑지 오 다랑라 더 딘데지라 초로스 거라 초로스 더 디장지 군에 문제 제만도 딜레 게네 초 문제 제디 요마레스 녜르 디수
So yeah, we don't really need to go too far when we're talking about feelings. And as you mentioned, I think it's Annie, as you mentioned, it's a mental state. Feelings are a mental state, so it's related to consciousness. They're not things that have color or shape. They're to do with experiences, sort of experiences of feeling. So when a negative situation occurs and we have a kind of negative feeling of not being happy, for instance, that's a sort of, that is the sort of feeling of the feeling of suffering, let's say, the negative feeling of suffering. So that experience itself is what we're talking about when we are explaining what feelings are here. We don't really have to go, you don't have to go into a sort of more complex way of looking into what feeling is beyond that feeling of, for instance, feeling happy or feeling pleasure or happiness or suffering. That's the thing that we're talking about right here when we talk about feeling.
다 지당니 센세디 시기 무분항시 미다야지 요 말다 미기 때네 통해 유비 취지 말에 미기 때네 통해 매비 취신다 여러분은 그 자디 안주니네 시버시에마도 미다네 시에요 말어 나야 지마디 미다 안주니가 비지당네 지마하고요 말고 하이 시버디 비지당고도 다 디나신 나수기 센세디 미다 나와든 하다 카다 류디주 비지당네 시에지 말에 센디 시에라 센쿠랑 비지당네 센시버제라 센쿠랑 비제당네 센라 다이드도 랑 센지 랑게 센라 다이디디 센디라 센라 미네 시네 고야 센라 미네 공자에디 송도 틴데 가수 흘려지 데토베 있느라 디네 림베 센세디 뇽장지차 세와단 리장지차 세장 리장기차 임버리고 지세도 주에 요지 송고다
And so generally when we're talking about mind, it's not something that is sort of directly kind of perceivable, sort of externally perceivable. It's not like other sort of more external phenomena, for instance, physical forms which we can look at. And but of course there are some of the other senses that the such as sense objects such as sound that only the ears can perceive, the eyes can't see it, and then likewise the nose can sense certain smells, but the other senses can't know them. But then when we're talking about mind itself and not the sort of external sort of more like sort of physical phenomena, then only mind can know mind. So it's a sort of case of using your own mind to watch your own mind. So we sometimes, there is a form of meditative constant kind of calm abiding, shamatha meditation, which takes as its focal object the mind itself, and also you can also look at the mind, using mind to look at the mind and to ascertain its characteristics, such as its clarity, the clarity of the mind, and the knowing capability or kind of aware nature of the mind. So mind, it's only mind that can sort of identify and relate with mind, not nothing else.
다시당 디레 초디를 슈추중게 토니 초신지 슈침부 차윤디간라 초신다지 파 시지니야 베나 생기 초디 슈침부 차윤디간 류기 초디 파 시지니야 디용고도 베나 센나 가나시부 주예베 걸르다 센라 가나시부 주예베 걸르 수불라 마디오 예베디쿠 파 시지니도 가나 슈침부 메베 걸르 수부도 라보도지 마디오도 감보도 마디오 지예베이나 오 마디 하나시 로 지마디 디디도 소대지 다 로버트 미신다지 땅 상부시우지 시지 지랑라 오 야부시우지 중앙에서 시지 땅 상부지 안줄로 구용디가 디기 가와지 내용디가라 가와시부 지용디가라 류기 초디 바 시지니기도.
And so also we have to sort of look into this topic of feelings in the sense of strong, how the strength of feelings, whether they're strong or whether they're weak. And also it's very clear to see, as we mentioned before, that mental feelings have the ability to outshine outshine or overcome the physical feelings. So for instance, if, for instance, you could have a pain in your hand or your foot or something like that, and at that time you sort of feel it. But then if someone were to perhaps to play something very, very pleasurable and delightful, play some, let's say, some music or something that was very pleasurable and delightful that your senses, like the ears, then actually you could almost due to the sort of great delight that came from that experience, then you would actually almost not pay attention to or forget the pain that you had. So different feelings, stronger and weaker feelings stronger feelings can outshine weaker feelings, and particularly mental feelings can outshine and overcome physical feelings. No.
Okay.
Microphone.
Rinpoche for teaching. I have two questions. First one was yesterday we went over the verse that the bodhicitta has two aspects. One is aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. So the bodhisattvas who are on the path of accumulation, who has spontaneous bodhicitta, that spontaneous bodhicitta is part of engaging bodhicitta, or it's another category of bodhicitta? It's my first question.
member sinje di tuma jul ji yung digala member sinje di jul ji yung goro tuma ki njuba sinje resig mare ta member ngela shangju simba su member shangju ju de sinje tanje ji twendu dani lano mebe sanje ji kuban tuba ji gi se tuma dangje ti sha gro ta dangje sha ne lu do di ya gong ne gong pe de dang ne ta sanje ji kuban tuba cheba la kuban tuba tao 인수 파신투 러고 상주 심베 짐바당 수텐 디주제디 레라부 잔이요 말아 가 수지당 미지 항상 제두고 말해 다 디주제디 루장네 루이도디 고네 콤피트 당네 루이도디 슈지지지 당지시네 다 니마지 오다 상주 심베 쥐바 디주 양 단단히 게 러두사리 상사 딘제기 루도 레베 거라 아니 오 상제지 고만투비 체도 인수 파신투를 다 단단히 러야 인스 당제샤야다 상주심비 동바 람바니 송데니 주바 상주주의 생제바세 디스고레스 군이 디생카가레스 네가 상주지 센다레.
So first of all, to speak to that, in terms of, both the aspiring bodhicitta and the engaged bodhicitta are both forms of bodhicitta. That's the case. But for all the bodhisattvas who are developing this mind of enlightenment, then first of all, they have to give rise to the aspiring mind of enlightenment, and which has that wish that for the benefit of all sentient beings, I wish to achieve the unsurpassed state of complete enlightenment. And so it's like a promise to do that. But then, of course, comes a more difficult process then, in which we then take that aspirational promise, and but then we have to increase the strength of that and engage in the methods which are related. The methods that are related to the promise of attaining complete enlightenment, which is practicing the six perfections, which are not easy things to train in. They take a huge amount of effort, and gradually they're able to slowly increase increase their ability to practice those things, until then you're able to take the Bodhisattva vow and fully engaging in the practices of the six perfections and taking the Bodhisattva vow. And that's the point at which we talk about the mind of enlightenment being the engaged mind of enlightenment. Rimshi the aja the gidi chik sombarwa the solam gi gopse the gi janchu semba denzugi jemingi janchu gi sem dus jemingi janchu gi sem degi 죽셈르베 문셈르베 강인바
디 상주지 센세디라 고 주민기 상주기 센 인구거다.
하오
디다 주민기 상주기 센디라 니가 요래 멤버 상주 주의 신제비 신제디 요래 주버 상주 주의 신제비 신제디 요래 인디간라 니가 요디간라 맨센라야 주민 가수래 녀 트랜스비 주민기 상주기 센 요래 다 딘디 니가를 요래다.
아니 솔람데기 솔람베디네 코 니컬이 여비 카파도죠.
난진 총랑 총이거라 멤버십. 총랑 진네 주거 상주주의 신지기를 시지네. 주거 상주주의 신지비 구디 주거 신지 주의 지번에 손디 총랑 진 시지네. 난진 도 송거래. 다이나 총랑 진기 카도라 주거 상주주의 신지번에 총랑 진 시지 러기 요래디 총랑 진 인체라양 창창 멤버 상주주的신제디 주了接有的다디.
네.
你们经常路上人他们的level那些。
So first of all to say that the in terms of bodhicitta, all real bodhicitta is uncontrived. So uncontrived bodhicitta, so whether it's aspirational bodhicitta or it's engaged bodhicitta, both of those minds of bodhicitta are uncontrived. And then I was just checking with Rinpoche about the question about the path of accumulation. So Rinpoche says often in the text or in the tradition, what's said is that sometimes you can have on the smallest path of the path of accumulation, you can have the uncontrived aspiring mind of bodhicitta, but not the engaged bodhicitta. And then from the middling path of the path of accumulation onwards, then it would have it would be engaged bodhicitta. But there's also a sort of way in which, if we think over a bodhisattva's practice throughout a day, for instance, that the way in which they would meditate or act in relation to, there may be that at certain points in a day they are sort of essentially cultivating aspirational bodhicitta, and then at another time they're cultivating engaged bodhicitta. There is some sort of something to think about there, but important to remember that all forms of bodhicitta are uncontrived. Sure.
Another question is, at the beginning of the class today, you mentioned about 4 seals. And then the third one, I just want to clarify, it's all phenomena are selfless, not just transient, impermanent phenomena. It's all phenomena.
그래서 림시처럼 되게 두시 탐시 메다바 사시 탐시 등려와도 서버도 차게 시세 되게 아니 되게 거쳐 림시기 소이기 토라 페시 the 네 페시 콘서드 the not sure maybe the 두시 탐시 메다바스는 두시 탐시 메다바레스 아니 메다바 딘즈기 not 마세 메다바 마세 the 콘서드 등려와레스 사시 탐시 등려와레스 다 페시 네 라비 sul della conto dico res 메다베체 코나데기 통담에르웨스 어체tum시 통담에르웨스 디소스
상마레스
참아야
다음에
야 야
이나야 샤자시기 나로 돈 다음에 조디 강사기 다음에 송고 조
아.
강사기 다음에 이나야 다음에 세디 우마 비커스 취 탄지 다음에 버스기로 나중 샤자시기 나로 다음에 조 나나나 세팅가 송가 난즈벤즈버디 또 구디간다 나 다음에 버스 디조 송고다.
Yeah, indeed, it was probably an impression I gave when I translated it. But Rinpoche says all phenomena are considered empty and selfless. But actually, so from a Madhyamaka perspective, all phenomena are considered empty and selfless, as is stated in the 4 seals. But actually, having said that, when we're talking about the 4 seals, the primary perspective is in terms of kind of selflessness of person. It's set out in a way which is related to the way looking at how we can overcome self-grasping. So in that sense, we're talking that's like the primary focus in the sense it's not although we talk about every single phenomena being self empty and lacking self, but actually the primary focus here is the person, us, the person, the self, and how to overcome that self-grasping. Hola.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Please join me. Please join me in the prayers for teaching, page 4, the mandala offering of thanks for teaching. Gyalwa Chabdo Doje Chen Podog No Waye Machi Pa Yozog Tanpa Nada Don Jivla Du Thano Mote Jetsun Lama Lo Sang Thu Lo Sang Thu Wang Doje Chang Genpo Kyabe Yangtsen Tuko Rinpoche Lob Sang Tenpe Gyaltsen Pa Zang Po Zal Na Thagpa Genpo Zungcho Zamo Lagpa Zuwa Yondu Zing Kambur Wazur Om Vajrabhume Ahum, mighty golden ground. Om Vajrareke Ahum, encircled by a wall of iron mountain in the center, Mount Meru, king of mountains in the east, noble body in the south, rose apple in the west, cattle using in the north, unpleasant sound, body and noble body, yak-tail and other yak-tail, deceitful in traveling the supreme path, unpleasant sound and companion, unpleasant sound, precious mountain, wish-granting tree, wish-fulfilling cow, uncultivated harvest, precious wheel, precious jewel, precious queen, precious minister, sun in... Sun and moon, the precious parasol and banner of victory over all directions. In the center, the riches of gods and humans, perfect, lacking nothing, pure and enchanting. Wait, did I miss something? Oh, I turned the wrong page. Sorry. I went from page 4 to page 3. Let's go back. I'm going to do the precious mountain, wish-granting tree, wish-fulfilling cow, uncultivated harvest, precious wheel, precious jewel, precious queen, precious minister, precious elephant, precious horse, precious general, and great treasure vase, grace goddess, garland goddess, song goddess, dance goddess, flower goddess, incense goddess, light goddess, perfume goddess, sun and moon, precious parasol and banner of victory over all directions. In this center, the riches of gods and humans, perfect, lacking in nothing, pure and enchanting. To the glorious, holy, kind root and lineage gurus, and especially to you, the great, perfect, pure Lama Losang Thuben Dorje Chang, the gloriously good Yangten Rinpoche Lobsang Tenpa Gyaltsen, the possessor of the complete teachings, whose holy name is being uttered here and with good reason as a thanksgiving for your great kindness in having excellently given us the profound Mahayana teachings. We offer this as a Buddha field. Please accept it with compassion for the sake of transmigratory beings, having accepted it out of your great compassion for sentient beings. Please bless me and all mother transmigrating beings, equaling the extent of space. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. May my venerable Lama's life be firm, his white divine actions spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losang always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 realms. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Tayami. Okay. I'm sorry?
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to do the short mandala offering again. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adored with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and moon. I imagine this as a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. May my venerable Lama's life be firm, his white divine actions spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losang always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 realms. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Nirya Kayami.
You may pray, you may recite His Holiness long life sentence.
Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience. This is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Shantideva's prayer. May all beings everywhere, plagued by suffering of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or even feel ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicine be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill be quickly freed from their ailments, whatever diseases there are in the world. May they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world.